posted pictures of his house where his son had literally run through the drywall. And there was like these huge dents in his wall. And
I can tell you some horror stories about my son picked a hole through to the furnace or something and almost, yeah.
And so you see those types of things and, you know, we can instantly reach out to that gentleman right away, which we do. But in the bigger sense, you start getting a feel, and we've known for a few years that TAND is,
of course,
the next big thing we have to focus on. But the fact that people are willing to like share the super, super ugly like that it's remarkable to me. And I think it takes huge huevos to do stuff like that. And, you know, again, that happened after we closed the group. And so, you know, I think making that group private was one of the best things we've done, which I said. And I love seeing the triumph stories because I think it's so important for parents who just had a baby maybe
to have hope.
To have hope because, you know, you see these young kids who just graduated with honors, or the one young kid a couple of weeks ago who walked for the first time and he's like 4 years old or whatever. And, you know, those triumphs are so important.
Yeah, you got to celebrate them.
Yeah, you know, and I mean, I think we have to talk about the bad, but the good is just as important. And I remember the first magazine that I worked on at the TS Alliance, 2004, there was a success story on the cover about an adult with TSC, and I got a phone call from somebody, a dad, really upset, who said, you know, you guys never show the bad side of TSC. You make it sound like it's rosy for everybody. And the light bulb goes off, right? You're just thinking, you really, you have to be completely, utterly truthful with everybody. But in TSC, there is no truth for one person that somebody else is.
Very well put.
You know, and that's what's so challenging,
frustrating.
You know, because it varies in every single person. And that's one of the most insidious things I think about tuberous sclerosis is that even though we have all these great tools and you can get diagnosed early and there's great new treatments, you never really know what's down the line, and nobody can predict that, at least not right now. And that's always just been, to me, probably one of the most heartbreaking parts. It's just, it's not like so many other diseases that kind of know what the course is going to be. And
I think that just
very,
it does. And I think that, you know, having the webinar that Caroline did was interesting in that way, because I think there's just really no understanding of people that in like as far as like trauma or whatever, you're caring for a kid or experiencing personally something that isn't going to end. You know, it's not like you're being beaten up or, you know, whatever. And it's usually there's a finite endpoint, but it's just the uncertainty over years and years.
Right.
Yeah.
And even with diseases like cancer or diabetes or whatever, there's kind of a beginning, a middle, and an end, however that ends up.
I think that's probably the hardest thing personally, is not projecting into the future based on the past, because things are changing quickly.
Yeah. I mean, you see this on the groups too. There's always the discussion, is TSC1 worse than TSC2?
Oh, yeah.
And usually, yes, or TSC2 in general,
right.
But there's always many, many cases where it's not so. And so, yeah, that unpredictability is just, sucks.
Yeah.
The flip side is there's so much hope, and there's so many reasons to believe that treatments are coming down the pipeline. That's a fact. I mean, there's a lot of stuff being worked on by the really, really smart people, and it's amazing.
The really, really smart
research conferences, and the words these people use are
I know what you're talking.
30 or 40 letters. So, but you know, it's just, and that's the other thing. You know, I talked a little bit about our staff being into all of this. Most of the doctors, the prominent TSC doctors at all these clinics, they have as much empathy and caring as we do. And it's just, it's remarkable.
That's
to me.
unique. I'd say.
Yeah, like I said, my first job at that big hospital system in Texas, I worked with the very typical, stereotypical, egotistical doctor.
Yep.
What was that Alec Baldwin movie, I Am God, or whatever, who think like that. And a lot of physicians are like that. And unfortunately, and
Yeah, it is
I think
unfortunate.
in the TSC world, I think the vast majority of them are not in that column. And many of the physicians I've met over the year are the greatest people. And I love the fact that they are able to be such a part of the community and come to our events and
It's pretty
participate
cool.
outside of their practice. Yeah, it's super cool.
Very cool. Yeah. Well, do you have anything that you want to give some spin or?
No, I mean, I just think that tuberous sclerosis complex is a crappy disease, but you've got a really good organization working on your behalf and a lot of really good doctors and researchers who are trying to figure things out. And as I mentioned, I believe there's every reason to have immense hope for the future. And, I think the other thing we didn't really talk about too much, but all these people who were willing to participate in clinical trials for the mTOR inhibitors and vigabatrin and all of those things have really, laid the path for future generations, even though themselves or their kids maybe have been too far along on the disease to benefit. Those people who have been willing to do the clinical trials to benefit future generations deserve more credit than we could ever give them. And I'm constantly moved and impressed by the TSC community because they, that whole phrase, we'll give everything but up, is the truth. And it's the truth about the staff. It's the truth about the doctors, but it's immensely the truth about people with TSC and these families. I mean, it's demonstrated time and time again. The March on Capitol Hill, you guys come up and we didn't talk about all that stuff, but it's just amazing.
Yeah, well, what's your experience on Capitol Hill? Did you?
Well, that had just it seems like that first 2004, 2005, that was the beginnings of all of that with Will Cooper, as you know. And over the years, I think that particular event, the March on Capitol Hill, where volunteers come to DC, meet with their Congress people face to face, year in and year out has just gotten better and better and better. And, these are moms and dads who leave very sick kids at home. And I mean, every meeting we've had, somebody's had to leave early because their kid went into status seizures or
I didn't think
whatever.
I'd make it. My daughter had a massive seizure right before I left.
Exactly. But you still left her. And I mean,
it was terrifying.
Not left her, but
no, there was the support in place. But yes, I know.
You chose to come do something in DC out of your comfort zone, and it's out of a lot of people's comfort zones when they first do it. But I think I hear over and over from people that in this world of TSC where you can't control anything, the one thing you can control is trying to make a difference, right? And so that may be once a year coming to a Step Forward to Cure TSC walk. That may be coming to the March on Capitol Hill. That may be volunteering for one of Dina's programs to help somebody else. And the fact that people are willing to do that outside of everything else you already have on your plate is amazing to me. And you see it at the walks too. And I mean, we hear so many times that's the single time every year people can meet somebody else with tuberous sclerosis complex. And then everybody goes back to their day-to-day lives and those challenges. But the opportunities that we try to present with the regional conferences and the world conferences, and I think the coolest thing at those conferences are when there's a kid who had never met another kid with TSC or a young adult or an adult, to see those interactions for the very first time. it is such a privilege to me. And, there's so much value in putting people together, even if it's just once a year. And so those type of events are really important. And I mean, with the walks in particular, I mean, they've of course there to raise money, but we have always believed as a staff that the social aspect of the walks are just as and probably even more important than the fundraising aspects. And often, I mean, like I said, we've heard many times that's the one time a year when people can,
Yep.
touch somebody else with TSC. And we hope those kind of connections carry on. And I think they do. I mean,
Absolutely. Absolutely they do. It is.
It's family. You're in a family.
I think personally, I don't agree with everybody as far as everything that whoever they are or whatever, you're always going to come up against people but it seems like everybody's willing to put down those personal, in a lot of situations, personal differences to really come together.
Yeah, by and large. I mean,
by and large.
There's spats behind the scenes about this or that, and
of course,
it's just part of the deal. But
yeah,
by and large, it's just a very supportive community. And as I've said, certainly so honored to be a part of it, and I feel so blessed.
Well, we're lucky to have you.
So welcomed, and I consider so many of you dear, dear friends, and it's been the best thing to happen to me in my life, and that's the truth.
Yeah, I can feel that, Jay, and I thank you so much for the work that you've done and your devotion to the cause, because it means a lot.
Thank you very much for saying that, but as I mentioned, I get way more back than I give, and it's been a life-changing, life-affirming experience, and
wow.
I got about 10 more years in me, I think, so.
Good.
Hopefully I'm still useful.
Knocking on wood here. Yeah, that's great. Well, thank you.